Good afternoon. Hello. No Storm Talk music. Nope. No Storm Talk. But don't you miss Snow Talk? Should I play it just for fun? If I get enough threes in chat, I'll play the Snow Talk open. I got to see a lot of threes, like everybody. And there are a lot of you watching. You can comment on the social media side. Facebook, X, Twitch, and on YouTube as well. Good morning, Weather Geek. Hello to Tim. DJ's watching. Hello to Angela. Tiffany says do it. Brad's got a 3. We got a 3 from... How many Brads are there? Oh, Brad just keeps hitting 3. Okay. Well, that's fair. All right. All right. That's enough threes. Should we do it? All right, let's do it. For nostalgia's sake, this is really going to panic folks just now tuning in. All right. I know I don't want to get in trouble with too many people worrying that it's going to snow. It's not going to snow, so need to panic on that. Hello, everyone. I'm meteorologist Brian Goode. I love that snowflake stays in the monitor out in the studio right now. What is my name? Brian Goode. Hi, how you doing? Welcome to the weather blog. No official really name to it today, because we are getting into a quieter stretch of weather that's going to hold for the next several days until we get into a bit of a weirdness at the very end of the 10-day, which I'll show you that as a snapshot in just a second. As always, you guys, as I mentioned, can comment on the social media side. And, oh, no, vehicle fire. Oh, no. Let's see. Wavy's got it punched up. I don't see any smoke there. Sometimes it says vehicle fire, but they usually get extinguished quickly. But it's at Preston Highway on the Snyder Freeway, right into that corridor. So we'll keep an eye on that. Okay. Usually sometimes we see a lot of smoke, you get really worried, but I don't see anything like that on the image. It looks like it's off to the side. Okay, so anyway, we are watching the setup for this weekend. There are a few little asterisks here when it comes to the rain chance. Otherwise, we have a nice, quiet stretch of weather. Everyone's going to be talking about mowing more than anything, I'm sure, as we head down the road. Let me show you what was I going to bring up. Oh yeah, live camera, because today is also a unique day because of, well, the Skytrack camera changed on me. Hold on one second. Let me bring up a different one. There it is. The Flying Fox. I think it just launched an hour ago at Kentucky Kingdom. Sorry, the camera's kind of stuttering there. I promise the Ferris wheel is moving a little faster than what you see. The Flying Fox starts today. I know it's not the real intense thrill riders coaster that you're thinking of, but actually for adults, I think it moves at a pretty good pace. So we do have a POV a look at that coming up on our newscast today. If you want to see what that's like, it may even be online already, to be honest. Otherwise, check it out for yourself. And there are a lot of folks at Hurricane Bay. I can't move the camera at the moment, but there are quite a few trying to enjoy the humid air that we have in play today, because it is still humid out. We will take another couple days to kind of drop that moisture level to get us into a much more comfortable feel. And we will get there as we head into, especially the latter half of the weekend and into next week. Right now, we got a few flat cumulus clouds in the distance, also some high level clouds rolling on by, but not enough to really block out the sun. Of course, you see how muddy the Ohio River is. Very common sight when you have recent rain events. That is still the area of creeks and streams all up and down the Ohio, all the way to Mississippi, or excuse me, to Pennsylvania, that are feeding in all the sediment. This is a clay environment too in our region here, so a lot of that clay gets washed in the water. So anytime the Ohio looks that color, you can tell we've had a recent rain event. When it gets more into the bluish color, and sometimes a really dark blue, a navy color, then that usually indicates more of a drought where you just haven't had much in the way of change. But anyway, just wanted to point that out. All right, some of you know about this date. Where's Mike? Is he in here? I know that he's working hard all the time of analyzing it. He's one of our friends here with the weather team, and runs his I think it's I-65 weather. He runs that on social media if you guys are familiar with that. But today is the 30th anniversary of the Bullitt County tornado. Can't believe that it's 30 years now. This date, I was working at, actually I was an intern at WLKY. I had the morning shift with Laney Pope. Kevin Harned was with me working at WLKY as well, but he was the afternoon intern working with Kevin Raymer. So we were kind of split. So I got off the morning shift and I went to the Fern Creek Kroger right in through here and to start my shift for the day. It was very hot, very humid setup that day. And then we had what we called splitting supercells that took place. And this is where two of them split right at the point of approaching Jefferson County. And at the time when it moved over the Jefferson Memorial Forest and it touched down, I don't think a lot of folks really even knew. There was the other cell we were watching in Indiana, but this one hit in an area that wasn't heavily populated. Didn't get a lot of attention, at least at the initial moment it touched down. But boy, once it was on the ground, it obviously hit highly populated areas into Pioneer Village, near the Brooks exit, just hugging north there of Highway 44, crossed over it into Mount Washington, kept going south of Kings Church Road, right into Taylorsville, and then just slowly but surely disappeared or dissipated over Taylorsville Lake. It was an F4 rating. Now, this is before we had the change to the scale of enhanced, and then we started calling them EF, whatever number would come after that. But at the time, we just used F. So it was F4, winds over 200 miles per hour with this. Injuries, 10. Most of those were minor, and 0 fatalities that took place with this system. I could tell you that when it hit the ground, it flipped over the semis right there at the exit at Brooks, and the reports were coming in wild of all the damage. I had a shopper that was at Kroger, and she, at a later date, gave me a VHS tape of the accounts of what happened out her window. And the Weather Service actually has a copy of that tape now, because it was not only was the very first signs of the touchdown, but it was the loudest train roaring sound I've ever heard. And I'm sure you've always heard that as a thing about tornadoes. It sounds like a train. And I'm telling you, on that tape, it is nearly deafening. when you hear that sound. So it is very loud train sound that took place. And there was several trees, they're relatively weak trees that she had in her yard. They were swaying. And then when the touchdown took place, or right before the touchdown, the trees were moving wild and then they just stopped instantly. The amount of air that was surging straight up at that point in her yard was overwhelming. And that was a sign of the incredible updraft, which would lead to eventually the tornado to drop very close to her house. She lost her house, unfortunately, but she wasn't seriously hurt. It was a very emotional video. And hopefully one day I can show you guys that. The quality is probably not great now, 30 years later on that. But I think the Weather Service at one point had a digital copy of it anyway. I was working at the Kroger. I was in Fern Creek. So my family lived in Mount Washington. They were located just north of the track. No one was in the path. No one was hurt. And the house was all right. I was in Fern Creek, right at the Snyder. And we were under the hail core. I remember the hail hitting. And I remember my main job at that moment was to get all the customers into the freezer and to the back of the deli and seafood department, meat department, get everybody in the back of the store as quickly as we can. And it was me and I think 2 other assistant managers. And we were just trying to move people as quickly as we could. And we were all gathered in there. And I remember the NOAA weather radio went off. It was one of the few times I've ever heard this happen, but it went off just to say, not another tornado warning, just to say, this is a large, damaging tornado on the ground. This is serious. You need to be underground if you can be. Now, today we have the same type of messaging that happens when that escalates. They call those tornado emergencies, but wasn't really that case. Technically, at that time wasn't a definition, but that's kind of the action they took when you had a confirmation like that. But it was eerie, and a lot of scared folks. I remember the faces of all the customers when the hail was hitting the store. And I knew at that moment, if we were under the hail core, I knew the tornado was close. But if we were in the hail, I felt a little better that we're going to be all right. But it was puncturing through the roof of the building there at the Kroger. So it was large hail, about the size of baseballs that were coming down. So it was a big system. I remember driving back into Mount Washington, and there was a Pizza Hut. You guys may remember restaurants. If you know the area well, there was a Covered Wagon restaurant. There was a Pizza Hut across the street. I remember driving over the letter H in Pizza Hut. All the letters were stripped off of it, laying in the middle of Bartson Road. And it was a mess. But considering how powerful that tornado was, and only 10 injuries and no one killed, really, the good sign of that was the idea that it was late afternoon. A lot of folks were highly aware of the weather instead of middle of the night. And it was very much a severe setup that day that was getting the attention. And that was our focal point from morning onward, was the idea this was going to be a bad day. So the awareness was high on this, but it was just a wild storm. So I know a lot of you remember that. It's up there with the 1974 tornado outbreak. It's up there with the Henryville tornado outbreak. It's up there with Western Kentucky, Mayfield. It ranks in that list of one of the bigger events that our region has experienced. Was May 28th, 1996. All right. Mike, I think I saw your comment in there. Again, check out, he's going to do a blog, it sounds like, on his page. So look for his post later on. If you can tag me in it when you get that posted, Mike, and then folks will love to watch that. Okay. So anyway, just a long-winded story of that. But for those you're new to hear, like, wow, never heard of that or anything the case. But yeah, that was a big one. Okay, humidity levels today. Well, we have a lot of humidity, but thankfully we don't have all the ingredients to really fire up storms. So that's good. And this is going to be a step-down approach. These values will drop a little bit more as we mix out this afternoon. But there is a moisture boundary to the north. Let me switch over. Well, I'll get to that in the satellite. But there's 2 different boundaries. One is really your wind shift. The second is your moisture boundary. Pretty typical. So we've got the northeast wind at play now. We're not adding more moisture. Now we just need to clear out what we've got. And because of the wet ground as of late, it's a little tougher to scoop it up. The moisture at the very lowest 1,000 feet of the atmosphere, especially even lowest 500 feet, it takes a little bit longer to scoot that out. So a lot of the clouds today will be relatively low when they form. They're going to be high up as far as the tall cumulus. There'll be relatively flat cumulus, but we'll eventually get the ground dried out. And it'll be just, again, a process. Now, rain in the last 24 hours. Some of you didn't get any. I didn't get any. But some of you did in Indiana. Those thunderstorms in the late afternoon. Most of these were the mid-afternoon round that moved northeast, and these moved in from the northwest. And if you were in that little apex there to the west of Louisville, you were just in a spot where you missed all of it. All right. Well, the drought status updated. Not as much of a change as I still think it needs to be. It still is missing some of the rain events, especially in central Kentucky. My gut feeling is that I still think you're in a drought, but it's probably more of an issue of like I would say a low end or a moderate drought. Here, I wouldn't go with severe or extreme. I think that may be a little too high for you. The exception to that may be in parts of Adair, now torn down toward Tennessee and our far southeast side. Yeah, perhaps you may be into extreme, but I think for a lot of you in central Kentucky, you've improved at least a couple of categories. And I don't see any issue here for Louisville or Indiana for that matter. But told you guys, at least show it to you next week. Consider we don't have any systems coming in between now and the next update. Next week will certainly be a more accurate look to all that. So if you look at the satellite, you can see the differences in the shift. So there's your front number one and front number two located up here, a little more diffuse looking, but the cloud cover is just moving different directions to give you an idea. These are low level clouds getting scooped to the south, and these are just high level clouds blowing over the other front. But it's a dry setup today. Only rain chance you're going to have is where this Bowling Green boundary, wherever that is, and ahead of it, that's your rain chance. And that's out of wave country, so that's a good thing. Any questions, by the way, I can quickly answer on anything I just covered on Bullitt County or anything. I don't want to get too far ahead. So, would you say, Adam, a VHS tape? What is that? Look, I have over 300 VHS tapes. Some of it could be blackmail for some folks you see on TV of the early days. So I really got to get that. Angela, my mother told me about the Bullitt County tornado, living in Pensacola at the time. The funnel skipped over the house, a close call there. Yeah, it was. You imagine going through Bullitt County today? I mean, it wouldn't sneak by us for sure in this day and age. But the fact that an F4 and a splitting supercell, I think it gets it really technical, but it was a pretty remarkable. The radar had only been up maybe 6 months. The radar was active. We called it a PUP, which is the radar terminal. They had the Weather Service off Smyrna Parkway. It was really new. So this was the first big event that it covered for the tornado aspect. They may have had a version of it, I believe, maybe in 94 snowstorm, but I think the 96 tornadoes when it was really put to full use. No other questions? Okay, good. All right, just want to make sure give you a moment to ask that if you did. You can see the moisture levels. Here are the PWatts, by the way. Don't have values associated with them, but you see the flow that I'm referring to. Moving all that deep tropical moisture down to the south. So we're getting a break. We are getting most of the rivers back to full pool level, if not above that. For Nolan and Rough River, you probably saw the story about Taylorsville Lake, that due to flooding, they've had to shut down the marina area today to try to get everything cleaned up. I think Saturday, they're hoping to get it back open again to full capacity as normal, just in time. So if you want any boating plans or fishing plans this weekend and you want to go to Taylorsville Lake, I would wait till at least Saturday. Give them another day to clean things up, because any high water events, mud takes a long time to get cleaned up. It's just nasty stuff, right? All right, so a good weekend to do anything you got planned, really. The only thing we're going to hold on to with the storm chance is going to be just on the edge, because the front that's moving in through Bowling Green, unfortunately, it's not going to move much more than that. It will linger. In some cases, it may even waver a little bit back and forth in central Kentucky. Yesterday, there were signs it was trying to waver all the way back up to Louisville with a thunderstorm chance into Saturday. Today, it's not doing as much of that wave. It's a little bit more confined wiggle into West Kentucky. But just kind of, heads up that that's the key player, is where does that set up shop? If you're north and east of that, then yeah, you're fine. No issues there at all. You'll be in mighty fine shape. So here we go into Friday. You see that return flow. There's that push trying to build back in. Cloud cover moves back in. Now, we may get quite a bit of cloud cover to start off into the weekend, especially around Louisville and south and west, just because of that flow trying to ramp up and fight back against us from the southwest. But the moisture levels will be lagging on that to get too far north. So they'll basically hug, again, southwest Kentucky down into Tennessee. Here we go into Saturday morning. This is one of those wiggles that was getting close. Again, it gives us the clouds, but your rain chance mainly around Bowling Green, Muhlenberg County, Ohio County, all the way to McLean County. Some scattered showers and storms. But then something else starts to happen. We get into Sunday and Monday. We have another push from the high pressure to the east that it's like, all right, enough of this whole wishy-washy stuff and this bouncing around. It moves in and it's like, enough of that. And it pushes it away. That will lock us in at that point of staying dry for several days into early next week there. It will be such a dominant flow from the northeast that wiggle mess will be coming to an end. So it's only wishy-washy on that front until about Saturday, and then the high says enough. All right, so let me show you what that looks like from a broader perspective. And you can see as we head into Sunday, that push begins to happen. Now, watch what happens into the northeast. This low is interesting, and it's going to be one of the storyline makers as we head down the road here. As it evolves into the mid-Atlantic, New England area off the northeast coast, Nantucket, yes, we're benefiting here because there is a high. We don't have all the pressure systems listed here, but there is a high here. You got the low here, and you've got a general troughiness located here into the plains, but another low is coming in across the Rockies. But watch the tropics here too, as far as the Gulf. Showers and storms increasing in coverage, but don't take your eye off this cutoff low. I've been watching this waver a bit for the past week, and at times it was wanting to drift so far west, it was trying to give us a midweek rain chance. Doubt that's going to happen. I think it's going to stay basically where it's at or drift a little more out to sea. But because it is creating a blocking setup out to sea, it's basically closing the Atlantic. So these fronts that are moving in, they slow down, they get stuck, they have to go over all this heat that's going to be building in the plains. There's no other really route for them, but it also allows for the Gulf to say, I see a weakness. And it wants to try to sneak in and wrap in because, again, there is a high pressure just southeast. It should be over the Smoky Mountains by this point as we get into Wednesday. And then as we get into Friday, so almost a week from now, it tries to take whatever weakness, organized clusters of storms in the Gulf, and tries to push it into the lower 48. Again, it's just going with the flow, wrapping around that southwest flow where the high would be here just to our east. And there's that cutoff low again, a little further in the Atlantic. So this is interesting because that would bring in a slug of heavy rain just in time for next weekend. Now, there are some issues on whether or not this could be a tropical system as far as it being a named system. The first one of the season is Arthur. That's possible. I know the model runs go a little wild, and some people are like, oh, you can't, don't buy it. Here's the thing. GFS is notorious for seeing a hurricane sometimes 2 weeks out, but it doesn't know ever what to do with it. And that's the problem the GFS has always had. It's horrible at forecast tracks with hurricanes and tropical systems, but it is good on sniffing out the pattern that is conducive for one. And the GFS was first on sniffing out something between the Gulf or even the Bahamas area that could develop. Now, I don't think it's right on the track, so I'm ignoring it. This is the Euro you're looking at. It also is showing there is some potential here. One of the better models when I worked in Charleston that did really good on seeing tropical systems, that did well, not only the early detection of it on the track, was the Canadian model. And I'll show you where we stand with those in just a second. But it does bring in the slug of heavier rain next weekend. So this will be interesting to watch. So if you are sick of the heavy rain, it may come back. But at least we get a break. We get a break for a week. But there is a chance it may do a sneak attack on us for the next weekend. At least it doesn't look to be a very powerful system. So we will get the weaker version of whatever this is, which is only going to be about what we just went through with showers and storms rolling in. And then we're going to stay warm and humid. And unfortunately, because the low is still out here in the Atlantic, this is going to be it's going to be messy. We're back into that triangle of showers and storms and humidity. So at least this is a promising sign to end the drought concerns. For now, I have cautioned you guys many, many years here on the blog that you can have a very wet pattern. Even last year, we were 10 inches ahead of the game where we are now in rainfall for the year, and we still ended up in a drought at the end of the summer. You can still get into a drought. All you need is mid-90s for about 10 to 12 days in August or September, and you're in a drought, and perhaps a severe drought. So it can flip on you in a hurry. So let's be thankful that we're getting beneficial rain. We just need to keep that consistent, but we just don't want it to be too much where we're just constantly waterlogged. The good news about this is that we're adding so much water to the ground moisture here that, this is going to keep us from getting into the mid 90s for a while. It may be humid and feel like 90s, but the actual numbers will be a little tamer, which was also a sign that we had last year. Here's the ensembles. I know this is maybe it's maybe hard to see. Let me see. Bring it up full. This is the ensemble from the Euro. These are all the different low pressures on Friday. You can really see the high. This is the dome of the high. And again, the high pressure goes clockwise. It's the flow around it this way. And if you look carefully, there are a couple lows, not many, 2 or 3, that does pick out, very, very weak, that does pick out, that try to wrap around that flow that may journey into Kentucky. And then this is the position of potential low pressure in the plains with that front. It's just to kind of explain the map a little further. So that was the Euro. Let's see, that was this morning's. This was yesterday's. Looks nearly identical. High pressure in the Bermuda high. Weak lows, signaling at least some weak low pressure. And again, I'm not saying it's going to be a named system. It could be just a tropical depression, to be honest. But either way, would be a big rainmaker if it aims, and that's the key. Is the flow so weak that it develops and just hugs along I-10 and I-20 and then kind of drifts into the Carolinas? Or is the flow strong enough to push it all the way into Kentucky and then it stalls? Or does the flow so strong it just moves quickly on out to sea? So a lot of scenarios that could play out. But given the block that we got on the other side here of the map that you can't see, I think a slow-moving system is most likely. And here's the Canadian. Doesn't show the lows, just shows rainfall, but you can see that it does have, this is where the frame stopped on it, but you can tell that it is hinting that something may be trying to sneak in along the Mississippi. Would that be interesting? All right, let's get into the 10-day. 85 today, just because of the lack of cool air just yet. So we're still going to overachieve just a little bit on temperature today, but tomorrow we'll feel a little bit of a difference. It'll slowly feel better on humidity. It'll take a couple of days to dry the ground out, and it'll feel better. And then when that high pressure really fights back as we get into next week, that's when those lows will drop down in the 50s. And then, we'll just keep tabs on next weekend and keep the chances low for now. But that is really other than our spotty showers in southwest Kentucky, that is our next chance of rain. That would be more than 30%, and that's more than a week away. So there you go. Christopher, New Albany next weekend. There you go. All about the tropics. Angela, good mowing weather. Yeah, some are waiting for the ground to dry out, but keep in mind, the grass pond's very, very high, and it will really spike this weekend with everyone mowing. So if you have a lot of issues with those allergies, just avoid the mornings especially. That's usually when it gets, really tough. I've been dealing with it too. I take a lot of different types of allergy meds, and I do fairly well on most of them. But this week it's been all about like sore throat, a lot of drainage, and just to try to take care of each other there and know your body. Most of you have been dealing with allergies in Ohio Valley long enough. Know what you got to do to get past the grass days. And when some people mow in your neighborhood or in your street, they mow and you hear the mowers going on out your window. That's usually a day I just don't go out. That's just not good. When you're driving through the neighborhood, roll your windows up. Your windows are down. You drive past those mowers. Boy, that pollen flies in the car. Dobie gets mad because I got to roll the window up. But yeah, it's not worth it. Any concern, Ben says, for severe weather? For the second week of June, that's pretty far out right now, Ben. I know there's been talk about that. I think if there's any place that would see it, you got to have a tailpipe. And given how sluggish this pattern is, I don't see the tailpipe here. That's likely going to be in the plains where it has been several times this season. So I think it's going to be the same spots until we get a little bit more of a wind field over us. It's going to be just your typical pulse severe, pop-up storms, downburst. But every summer season, especially here, we get more damage from downburst storms in the summer than we do from organized squall lines in our area. The downburst winds, because they are very intense, they tend to catch some of you off guard and can catch some meteorologists off guard because they can happen in between the scan update of the radar. But if the environment is primed for it, we try to really hit that hard. That this is a day where you got to be aware when those spooky clouds roll in. And especially a very hot day in particular, got to be ready for that burst of wind. And those usually cause your biggest power outages and wind damage. But don't know if that's going to happen or not in the second week of June. To answer your question, Ben, we need more time. More of an issue of heavy rain, it looks like. Let's see. Any other questions? Wait, what'd you say, Star? Don G and Brian and Tiger Walk into Kentucky Kingdom. Tiger Walk into Kentucky Kingdom. Maybe I missed something. Hey, Jenny, you never answer me, love. I'm answering you now. Hi, Jenny. Hope all is well up there. In the northeast part, you're doing a yard sale, Jenny. Well, if it was this weekend, you're good. Next weekend, it may not be great, Jenny, but it's still early. Let's see if this little wave even comes in from the Gulf. And if it doesn't, then you don't have to worry about it. But if it does, like it's showing, there may be an issue. When are the 90s back, Adam says? Well, that, again, it's going to be tough. When you have a very humid environment, a lot of humidity, green vegetation, a lot of ground moisture, it's hard for that thermometer to climb up there to get into the 90s. It's going to have to dry out for a while. And if we, next week would be a good candidate, but the wind direction's wrong. Wind direction's from the northeast, so that prevents you from getting a south flow so you don't heat up. But if we had a south wind with that stretch of dry weather, yeah, we'd have a better chance to get into 90 toward the end there. But everything's in our favor to avoid that. I like that idea. I'm in no hurry for it. We can wait as far as I'm concerned. I like the, especially in the evenings. When the evenings don't cool off, some love the sounds of the frogs and the crickets and all that. But when it's really humid out and you're sweating at 10 o'clock at night, that's just miserable. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and jump for now. It is 2 after 1, almost 3 minutes after, when we get ready for the 3 o'clock show. I'm on 3 and 4 again for today. I am working this weekend on Saturday, FYI, for Carson. So I'll be here Saturday morning. I think Ryan is Saturday evening, I believe. But I'll be here Saturday, and Tawana will be here on Sunday morning. So taking some deserved time off. You always get some wild weekends, it seems like. All right, guys, I appreciate you all watching, as always. And I will see you guys coming up on the flip side, which will be at 3 o'clock this afternoon without Wild and Crazy Myra and Sorry. I'll see you then.